Okay, nistiwana gok natuinski. Nim gana nim bukeks. Hi, my name's Katira Croshu. I am from Kainai Nation and I'm from the Many Children Clan. I'm part of the Blackfoot Confederacy that is in Canada and the United States. Currently, I'm Executive Director for International Buffalo Relations Institute. What really inspired me to make the Buffalo Treaty curriculum is, I guess, looking at what was already out there for Buffalo. And I'm not trying to be dismissive of what was out there for Buffalo, but it came from a very westernized perspective, I think, where it was very much so it's made to fit into Western curriculum, whereas I feel like the Buffalo Treaty is more so making curriculum fit the Buffalo Treaty. And so the Buffalo Treaty is a very beautiful, treaty that includes articles and values. And so really wanting to ensure that the Buffalo Treaty curriculum, encompass those values and encompass those articles. When you're going through the Buffalo Treaty curriculum, each of the articles are included in the curriculum, and it's really about having individuals think about Buffalo in a different way, not what to think about Buffalo, which can happen a lot of times with Western curriculum, where individuals, it's kind of imposed on, youth, even adults, what you should be thinking. And so a big part of this was, ensuring that people are really taking that chance to stop and reflect on their relationship with Buffalo. And just even having that time to reflect on what the Buffalo Treaty really is fighting for, and advocating for, that advocacy for the Buffalo. And so a big part of that origin for the Buffalo Treaty was just ensuring that the Buffalo's voice was heard throughout all of the curriculum. I think it's important for students to learn about the Buffalo today just because the Buffalo need as many advocates as they can. Right now, we're dealing with climate change, and we're dealing with climate change crisis and drought. And for our youth, we want them to already be invested in Buffalo. We want them to grow up already being invested in Buffalo. So when they get to be in those change maker positions, they're already at an advantage than, I would say someone my age, and we want them to already be thinking about a future with Buffalo, which is very much so important. We think about like the cultural, the ceremonial, not even in addition to the ecological benefits that Buffalo bring. And just to have our youth be having that Buffalo consciousness instilled in them, even at a young age. I think that's very important for the Buffalo and for the future of the Buffalo and for all Buffalo nations and people. My hope is that learners will feel more connected to something other than themselves. A big part of our holistic wellness is honestly the environment that surrounds us. And so I'm hopeful that a lot of these individuals will start to build a connection with the birds, with the pollinators, with the grasses, with the grasslands, with the buffalo. A lot of the times, I think we at times disconnect ourselves from nature, and it's just from the busyness of life, from working, having families, doing day-to-day things. And I'm really hopeful that people can start to reconnect with nature again. When we're talking about advocating for nature positive, ensuring that really people are starting to think of that nature consciousness and being aware of how our daily interactions impact nature, impact the land, impact those surrounding species that are in our ecosystems. And also as individuals, us understanding that we are just a small part of an ecosystem. We are not the ecosystem. And I really hope that individuals can connect in that way, or understand that there is a bigger connection than themselves out there in, I guess, the universe. the themes and concepts that were most important for me to include was definitely about the Buffalo consciousness and the values of the Buffalo Treaty, which were cooperation, restoration, and renewal. I think that anytime when you are trying to help individuals understand like a new concept, even just like Buffalo consciousness, it's important to make sure those values of cooperation, restoration, and renewal are part of it. A lot of the times values are, I guess, what the foundation of individuals, but it's also, cooperation, restoration, and renewal is really about the foundation of the Buffalo Treaty and everything that that's advocating for. When you're looking at the Buffalo Treaty, a big part of that objective is returning to Buffalo ways. And so when returning to Buffalo ways, it's also reflecting and looking at how cooperation, restoration, and renewal is a part of that collective and that connection. So I think for a big part of that, within the curriculum, it was always ensuring that each of those values were part of the activities, because individuals have different life experiences. And so one of the values could hit them differently than the value of cooperation can hit differently than the value of renewal. And then you go through a life experience and then you revisit it and you're like, oh, now this hits me totally different. And so I think it's understanding that, even though life is in constant motion and the flux, also understanding that, these values are something that also are in flux, because they also will mean different things to you at different times of your life. I think I have several favorites. For me, definitely one was the economics of the buffalo, and helping people understand that, we think of the Western term of economics and how that's monetary, it's trade, but really looking at the buffalo's economics and how it's almost reciprocatory, right? A lot of reciprocal relationships, and understanding how the buffalo, and I guess just even other species within ecologies, how they have their own economic system. And so bringing awareness to that, because I think a lot of the times we get stuck on one type of definition or one way of doing things. And for me, it was very important to help individuals start to understand, I guess, to more extent, just, I want to say the importance of those relationships that are happening within the environment. So for me, that was really important. And then another one activity that going with the economics, was just how individuals, their values that they hold, that's another economic system. And just even reciprocity that's practiced between individuals, that's another economic system. It doesn't have to be monetary value, but, when you're giving food or sharing a meal or even just sharing laughs, how much that is such an economic system that isn't really recognized, I feel. Another one of my favorite activities was definitely the buffalo song. For me, I think when we're talking about individuals, listening to a song, a lot of the times, like Western assessments would have you write a story of how the song made you feel. But I think when we can provide other options, such as, okay, if you could draw a picture, what colors would come to mind? If you could dance, what movements, what would your body look like moving, right? To me, I think we're providing a different way for the individual to connect with the content. And when you're providing those types of different options, the individual is making a real connection and creating their own relationship with the content, which I feel like is sometimes missing. And so really when you're about like the Buffalo Treaty curriculum, it was really giving it spirit, and having individuals feel spirit while they're doing it.